Hey guys, welcome back to the Noble Broker. I'm your host, Jonathan Lickstein. Remember, on the Noble Broker, we welcome producers and professionals within the real estate profession because it is a profession, it's not an industry. We have specialized sets of knowledge that can help consumers, both buyers and sellers, accomplish what they're looking to do, whether it's acquiring, maintaining long-term holds, whatever it might be, short-term investing and flipping, you never know. Sellers looking to get out of the market or get out of underneath of a home that needs a lot of work. And that's really what we're going to dive into today. So, welcome. Today I have Sorty Mejia with me, realtor, investor extraordinaire. And welcome, Sorty.
Thank you so much. I want to point something out. Real estate is not a career, it's a lifestyle. When you're a realtor and investor, that's what you do 24/7. And if opportunity presents itself, it doesn't matter the time of the day. You have to drop what you're doing and make it happen.
It's very true. We tend to conform to the needs of those around us,
Yes.
right? And it becomes more and bigger than what we individually have our own eyes set on.
Yes.
It's more about accomplishing the consumer's goal, whether it's buying or selling, right? So let's jump right in. Who is Sorty Mejia? Where are you from? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am from Dominican Republic, born and raised. I moved here at 18 to go to college, and I just fell in love with Florida. I decided to stay and went through a series of businesses. I've always worked for myself. In college, I used to buy shoes wholesale and resell it to the girls at school, and then I went into a hair business, and then I went into working for the military. But none of that was really my passion. Real estate was always my calling, right?
Okay.
My father is a real estate investor. He retired at 40, and just bought real estate investments. And that always kind of fascinated me. And I decided to quit my very high paying job for the military as a private contractor over at the Middle East to come to the States to be a real estate investor.
Interesting.
Yes.
I did not know that background,
Yes,
actually.
exactly.
We've known each other for years, and I
Yeah.
did not know that background.
Yes,
Interesting.
yes. So I came here to be an investor, not a realtor. But what happened was I realized that the different realtors that I was working with didn't have I feel what it took to make the deal happen. I wanted more. Like my offers were not getting accepted. So one night I said, well, how hard can it be to be a realtor, right? I looked it up. I found that you can do it in 1 week, and I went and I got the license, and the rest is history.
Okay. So it was through your own real estate investments
Yes.
that you experienced the interaction with various agents
Yes.
and determined that you wanted to do it yourself, you could do something different.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And that's what we're going to dive into today.
Yes. Wonderful.
So, did your father teach you when you were young about his method in real estate investing, or was that something you kind of developed your own pathway?
I developed my own pathway. He did not teach me. I just always saw him buying properties, fixing properties, and renting them out, right? He would always buy and hold as a landlord. And when I was 20, I bought my first real estate investment property in Dominican Republic. And I just had it. I went and I lived my life, lived my 20s. I had that property. It was the easiest money I've ever made, getting payments every month. And it was nice. Like, I always had kind of like that itch to do more. And then, fast forward 10 years after, when I was in the Middle East working for the military, I was like, this is good, but this is not it. This is not my passion. And when I got back into the States and started to actually buy properties and renting them out and all of that, I'm like, okay, this is where I fit. And I consider myself an investor first and a realtor second. So by investing, the word got around that, hey, Sorty has a real estate license. She's buying properties. And friends and family started to call me, hey, can you help me? And then I did, and I realized that I was actually very good at it. I'm an excellent negotiator. So I would always get the feedback of like, oh my God, I was working with this realtor and I could never find a house, or I cannot get the right loan approved. And I was like, okay, well, there's something else here. I think I could be both. And then now I am a realtor and investor.
So let's jump into some of the ways that investors on the buying side,
Right.
right? Let's start on the buying side and we'll
Okay.
shift over into the sellers, right?
Okay.
So on the buying side, there's a few different ways that investors can look at a property. You've got your long-term rent, buy and hold, right?
Yes.
Career landlord. You've got your short-term rentals, your Airbnbs.
Right.
You've got flip properties, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So what would attract an investor to one of these avenues in particular? What's the highlight, the pro and the con of each one?
Well, I am an investor on all three, by the ways. I have a portfolio of rental properties, I have a portfolio of Airbnb properties, and I also flip properties. So I would say the right one depends on how involved you want to be. That's really the right answer. If you want to be a laid back investor that you just want to collect your money with very little input, you want to be a long term landlord, right? We find the property. I do the numbers to make sure the returns are good. We find the tenant, we put it in place. You never have to worry about that tenant. Make sure every month they're paying, or you can give it to a property manager, right? But of course, like everything in life, you're going to get back what you put in. The returns are the lowest with long-term tenants, right? If you want to be a little more involved, or maybe you like to travel and you want to buy a property that you get to use whenever you're in town, then maybe Airbnb's for you. The returns are going to be higher, but it's more involvement. Even if you have a property manager, there's more maintenance, there's more oversight, there's more legality to it. You have to have a professional designer to like really decorate this property right if you want to get top dollars. So that would be second one in terms of returns and involvement. Where the big money is, it's in being a property rehabber. But that takes a level of skill and time and effort that is far superior than anything I've done.
I mean, I assume you need like a book of contacts or contractors that can do the work, unless you're going in there and get your hard hat on and kind of hitting the floors.
You just call me. If you want to rehab properties, just call me, because as a rehabber, I cannot do every deal. We all have a limit. Sometimes I'm topped off and I might have a great deal on my hands and I might just sell it to one of my investors. Or the other way that they do it is like, hey, I want to go in partnership with you, where they'll come in with the funds, or they can either come in, if they're a contractor themselves, they can bring in their sweat equity, and then we can work the deal in partnership. That's where you're going to have your top returns, but that's going to require more of an effort, whether it's financially or physically with your sweat equity.
Let's do let's do this lightning round real quick.
Okay.
One thing that you should know going into long-term rent holds.
Tenants are liars. Not in a bad way. You have to have a true professional realtor vetting these tenants for you. Because just doing a criminal background and credit check is not enough. There's more to that. You have to speak to the previous landlords. You have to speak to their neighbors, and you have to have like an eye for them. As a landlord myself, I like to meet all of my tenants in person.
Face to face.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And you can tell so much, when you talk to them and ask them questions. And if the paperwork is right, the next step is to meet with them. And all of that checks out. Most likely you're going to have a tenant that is not going to give you a hard time. But even after that, you have to take it a step further and have some good terms in your lease agreement. With my attorney, Bill Anderson, who's the in-house, he's been my attorney for the past 10 years. We kind of created like a special addendum for my leases where, of course, all legally, I do certain inspections several times a year, whether it's for pest control, to just kind of see what's going on with the property. You have to catch the bad things early.
Have an excuse to kind of get in, get your eyes on the property. Okay, so number one for long-term holds is
Yes.
tenants are liars. You need to get to know them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, number two, Airbnb holds. What is one thing that you should know when getting into that?
Wear and tear. Your property will take a beating. People will throw parties. or they will come with children that will scratch your furniture and your walls. So just understand that it's an investment property, it's not your personal home. Don't take it personal.
Kids don't damage things.
I have a 2.5-year-old, they do.
And one thing that you should know if you're getting into rehabbing properties to turn over.
Man, you have to have guts. You have to have guts and be fearless. Don't be afraid to lose money, but to also make a lot of money, because the market it's crazy. You know, sometimes I get into properties and I'm doing my analysis. I said, okay, if I buy at this price, once everything is done, I'll be able to sell it at this. But maybe when we get into the property, even as good as an inspection we can do, once you start breaking walls, it's when you really find the surprises.
You see that on HGTV all the time, right? They open walls. There's a dead person in the wall, or no, I'm kidding. There's
Yeah,
not dead people.
but you know, 10,000 can very quickly turn into like 50,000. You know, to fix a plumbing issue. So you have to have the guts to do it.
When you're going into a property, how do you analyze it, or how do you approach looking at, okay, here's my acquisition cost, here's my after repair value.
Yes.
How do you determine exactly what you're going to do to get that most return for your money without the risk?
There's always going to be risk. What sells a property? As a listing agent, I work with a lot of sellers that want to sell their house in the market for top dollars, right? Not just my own flips, but also as a flipper, I've gone very good at how to maximize that. But what people are willing to pay the most, I learned as a listing agent: kitchen, bathrooms. Your kitchen and your bathroom has to be very nice. You have to have a beautiful curb appeal, a nice backyard. A pool in Florida is something very valuable. But you know, at this point of my career, I can walk into a property and within like 5 minutes tell you what's wrong with it and how much it's going to cost to renovate it.
And you get that through experience,
Yes,
right?
you get that through experience. Like the same things when working with sellers. So now, as by default, all of my listings get staged.
Okay.
Whether they're my own flips or I'm selling it for somebody else, because I have noticed by flipping properties the difference that it makes. People are willing to make more if the property looks good. So I will go into maybe like a seller that wants to sell their property and say, hey, this is what your property is worth, but if we put in a little bit of staging, maybe paint a little bit, you can get so much more, and then give them that option. But sometimes, you know, I walk into properties that they're a complete disaster, and maybe that's not the right property to sell in the open market, but that's where I come in as an investor, where I say, hey, let me buy your property. I will buy cash. You don't have to worry about any of the drama, no fixings. And then, you know, it just works. It's a good 360 for everybody.
It's an interesting angle you come at as both the investor and the realtor.
Yes.
And there's many real estate professionals that could try and do that, but you've got the contacts, you've got the network,
Yes.
you've got this process down to a science.
Yes.
When you were first getting started, was there someone who kind of mentored you or was influential in your ability to set up what you've done today?
Yes. I mean, I have been very blessed with amazing mentors since the beginning of my career. I met my number one client to this day on real estate class.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So when I was going to real estate class, I met a gentleman there who has been hemming his family and all of his friends, very wealthy family, real estate investors for the past 20 years. Their realtor of 20 years retired after the whole 2008. He kind of saw things coming and sold his property for top dollars before everything crumbled. He retired, moved to Italy, wants nothing to do with real estate.
Ciao, literally.
Yeah, literally ciao. And this gentleman's like, you know, I'm here in the States. My family, my friends want to invest. They're from another country. I'm here getting the license to see if maybe I can do it. It didn't seem that difficult. He finished the class, but just because of his other businesses, never really had time. So he was always calling me. So, you know, I started to work with him, and he was my main mentor as having experience as an investor, I made all of my mistakes because they were looking for rental properties. So with them, I learned how to look for rental properties, how to analyze them.
And that's where you gained a lot of your base of your knowledge that you continue to utilize.
Right, and then just from there, different people have come. Where I can meet somebody and see something in them that they're doing that I would like to learn, and we just become friends.
Now let's talk about the staging. You mentioned that briefly, that when you put a property on the market, whether it's yours or for a consumer,
Right.
a client, that you almost insist or
Yes.
demand on staging.
Yes.
And there's a lot of value behind that. You notice that properties are selling for more when they're staged. What does that process look like? Who do you find? Do you do it yourself? What is that? I think there's a big misconception as to exactly how much staging costs and the benefit that is behind it.
It's not expensive, especially for the returns that you get. I had been an Airbnb superhost for 10 years, right? A lot of my own Airbnbs, I own all of the ones that I manage. I've staged myself, and I love design. I love staging. Depends on the property. If the property is small enough, I will stage it myself. I have a warehouse full of furniture, for my Airbnbs and for my own flips. So sometimes I will go in and do the staging myself. If the house it's a little more high end or a different design than what I have, then I will bring a company, and they will stage it. It's not expensive, to be honest,
Well,
and
for
it's
the
totally
return.
worth it.
Yeah,
Yes.
for the return especially.
Oh,
If let's say you're working with a consumer, with a seller, and you know that you'll get more money for that property for them
Yeah.
if it's staged.
Yes.
Do you find that you as the realtor cover that, or is that something the seller covers? Because in the end, the money's going in their pocket.
Right, it depends. Every deal is different, right? Not everything is cookie cutter. But usually the seller will upfront the cost. Depending on the seller, I might credit them some at closing, but most of the time they cover it, because that's where my experience come in, and me being able to convey to them in a way that they understand that this that I'm recommending them is for their own benefit. And I'm a numbers person. I will come to my listing presentations with, this is how much you can get us this is how much you can get if we were to paint it and stage it. And numbers don't lie. They're like, okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, for a little slap some paint on the wall and put some furniture in place,
Yeah.
it definitely gets people, the consumers that are walking through, more of a visualization.
Yes.
Have you ever tried virtual staging or just in person?
That's where I started. And I do all of my social media, you have to. So I do invest a lot in digital staging, video staging. I mean, if you look at my page, I go all out for my listings. But the reason why I decided to take it a step further and do it physically is because sometimes people would see a beautiful digitally staged home online, and then they come into the house and they're like, oh, this looks
There's
a
no
little bit,
furniture here.
and it looks different,
Where did that
right?
come from?
Yes, like I want my buyers to walk in and be like, whatever it takes, I want this house.
And create that kind of experience that they can
Yes.
visualize themselves in the property. Okay, let's shift.
Yes.
We've gone through some of the buyer side.
Right.
We've gone through approachability as an investor. Okay, now let's talk about the seller side.
Yes.
When you're coming into, especially a market like we're seeing right
Right.
now, where is a seller going? Why should they sell? And what is the motivation behind it?
You get top dollars. That's number one, right? So the sellers that I see selling now, it's either they are downsizing, right? Kids out of the house. The house is too big for them. They want to cash out because prices are very high, and they want something smaller, or they want to relocate to another state because Florida has become very pricey. I would say those are the top two reasons that I see, or three that I see people selling: cash out because prices are high, downsizing, or relocating.
So the trick is always, finding listings. Listings are gold in the real estate business, right? If you have listings, you have sellers and you have buyers.
Correct,
Right?
yes.
That's just a never-ending cycle of where your business really can go. But how do you find those people? You can find properties that are on the market, but how do you find sellers that either you can buy their property as an investor, or you can turn around and then work with them as a listing agent to find them and get them even more money on the open market.
Right. Well, that took me 10 years to figure out, so I'm not going to tell you.
Okay. Secrets.
But keep learning, keep trying different things, and you'll figure it out.
Okay, so forget about how you find them.
Yes.
Let's talk about the angle. How do you
Okay.
approach somebody? This is something that'd be super beneficial to our agents that are listening.
Honestly, my question is always, how much do you want for this house?
Period.
How much do you want for the house? Most of the time, people have a price in mind. If the price works for me for a flip, I would say, well, it's your lucky day. I will buy your house. You don't have to worry about listing. You don't have to worry about real estate commission. I will be your buyer. If the price that they want is something that I see that they will get more in the open market, maybe because the house is in a condition to be in the open market, because sometimes people want more for their property, but the property just will not qualify for a loan, so an investor has to buy it. But if it's a property that I see that it would do better selling retail in the open market, then I said, hey, let's list it. This is how much I think you could potentially get. As is, if we do this, painting, staging, blah, 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 then we can get this. And then that's it. I present them both options. I literally go to my listing presentations with two contracts, a listing agreement and a purchase agreement. They're either going to sign one or the other. That's it.
It's have it your way, right?
It's very simple. Me for a long time, I was a buyer's agent for a very long time, very successful. I love working with buyers. I mean, especially when they're buying their first house, the closing table, the energy is amazing. But for a very long time, I was very afraid to make the transition into specializing in listings, because I was like, oh my God, no, just lay it out. Most of the time, people know what they want, or maybe they need a bit of guidance from you, comes what have been sold, and then they make a decision. They're just regular humans like you and me.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've got quite a bit of experience in your background internationally. You
Yes.
spent time in the Middle East, from the DR.
Yes.
And you're here. Does your international experience ever apply and influence what you do here?
Absolutely. I think as an immigrant, it's not easy to be an immigrant. I think I have naturally more of a drive and an aggression in a positive way than other people that maybe didn't have to struggle as much as I did to learn a new language, to adapt to a new country, and to basically make it from zero to nothing. Because the way my father raised me is like, yes, I have money, I have properties, you have nothing. So, I had to start from scratch. And of course, being bilingual, it's the best in South Florida, because I can work with somebody that only speaks English, or I can work with somebody that's fully bilingual. I have a portfolio of clients that are based exclusively in Dominican Republic that do not speak a lick of English, and they work with me because of the language.
Right.
So that's very helpful. I've worked with Arab clients that also get rapport with me because, oh, you used to live in the Middle East, the culture, and believe it or not, I look a little bit like them. Yes, they're just always covered. But if you look at Kuwaitis, where I used to live, very similar features.
Okay.
Yes.
So something I ask every guest that comes on this podcast is, there's constantly, in this industry especially, you wake up every day and you're unemployed, and you have to be driven. You have to have a passion and a drive and a reason to get up. And I know you have a young child.
Yes.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
I love his hair. Super beautiful. Jealous, as you can tell. He has a whole lot more than I do. But what is something that impacts you or influences you? Is there a speaker, a podcast, something else that you listen to that kind of gives you ideas or gives you that drive every single day?
Honestly, my passion is real estate. I love real estate. Everything about real estate. I love properties. I just love everything involved, and I like that it's like it never ends. There's so many parts of real estate that you can do. I feel like every day I learn something new. And my personality needs to always innovate. Like once I master something, I'm bored. I master working with tenants on board. I master working with buyers on board. I master working with sellers on board. I master flipping on board. I master Airbnb on board. But with real estate, I can be bored and then turn around and say, no, there's another part of real estate that I've never done. Let me do that. And that's my drive. That's how I renew myself. Just the excitement of always doing something different and something new. And of course, being a mom, as a real estate investor, it's wonderful. I have the time to take him to school in the morning, pick him up in the afternoons, take vacations when I want. It's truly a blessing to be in this industry.
Well, I've seen you go through some ebbs and flows in your career,
Yes.
and seeing you have the baby, etc.,
Yes.
and still continue to kick butt and move
Yes.
forward and continue to work with consumers
Yeah.
and still be able to accomplish their goals. Meanwhile, you're doing a whole lot at home.
Yeah.
It's very admirable.
Thank you.
So what's next for you? What's on the horizon? What are you looking forward to?
What's next for me is working with sellers. Somebody with my experience, I can just understand whatever angle you are aiming, whether you want top dollars, whether you just want to offload this property. Come to me, because I can either buy from you or get one of my investors to buy from you, or I can sell it to you for top dollars. At this point of my career, that's where I see myself. I have been branching, which is part of investing. I've been branching a lot into working with people that are distressed, whether they need to go through a short sale, they're going through a foreclosure, or it's a probate because a family member passed away. That's actually, to answer your question, that's my new frontier. I'm focusing a lot of that because those people need help, and I have the connections and the funds to help them get out of that hole, whether it's to help them keep their house, whether it's to buy from them. I can be that source of light.
Okay. Probate's a whole nother animal. It's a whole nother division within this profession, right?
Yeah.
And it's in a difficult time. Somebody's passed away and they're transitioning ownership rights, etc. What's something important to think about when you're going into a transaction with probate?
You have to be very what's the word I'm looking for in English?
Patient?
It's not patient. You just have to
Give it to me in Spanish. Let's go.
I can't even think of it in Spanish. Oh my God. Compassion.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons why 99% of my business is completely referral based, I really don't do marketing unless I'm marketing a listing, is because I have that human touch. For me, it's not about it's about the money. No, I really want to help. I get a high out of that. And when you go into a probate, these people are struggling. Family member passed away. Maybe they left them a property that they don't have the funds and the time to take care of. So coming with solutions. And that's where I'm a step further. A listing agent is probably only going to be able to come in and help them sell the house. But I can come in and say, hey, maybe you need help paying these bills, while we're going through the probate process before I can buy this house from you. So as long as you're going in there with a heart of let me help you, because if I help you, I will help myself, because at the end of the day, I will buy the property, then everything will work out. So compassion.
So when you're going into a transaction or speaking with a seller, you can buy it, you can list it in any which way. If you have the seller's best interest in mind, success lies on the other side.
Yes.
And that's no bull. Thanks for coming, Sorty.
Thank you.
Love you.